Well, let's get down to it. This is Levi 19, Simple Principles, the Holy Agreements, number 4. This is our study going from Genesis to Revelation, however long it takes. However long it takes. But what we don't want to do is go through the text without exploring some of the meaning. This is for my grandkids, hey grandkids, and some of the brothers and sisters that are in Kenya. And from what I understand, some brothers and sisters in Ghana are also looking at it too, so that's good news. Wherever you're looking at it, reach out to me and let me know that this is helping you. I'm doing this because I believe someone has to get back to the basics, and I understand why people don't want to get back to the basics, because it's very tough to walk away from your stuff and just do the basic thing. However, we're losing our kids and our grandkids to media and bad teaching, and I'll put it out there. At a certain point, someone has to be interested in the basics. It is to the point in this generation where there are some people who teach have never gone through the Old Testament. Figure that one out. And the Old Testament is rich, a rich breakdown of the summary of the New Testament. I feel it very important to be familiar with it. So I'm going through it with you. Now, I have read the Old Testament many times before, but after 30 years, I just think it's time to really share with people not the Message Bible, not the New International Version, not even the New King James Version, but the 21st century, the year 2023 interpretation. And I understand the word says, no interpretation, but the idea is taking this old school language from the 1600s and speaking it in the 21st century. I think that's important. I didn't plan on my nose being sensitive this morning. Anyway, we stopped off in the last video at Leviticus 19, verse 16, where it says, "Thou shalt not go up and down as a talebearer among thy people, neither shalt thou stand against the blood of thy brother." We had a conversation on that. That is an old school word for gossip, or as a talebearer, going up and down telling everyone's business from your own perspective. Verse 17, "Thou shalt not hate thy brother in thine heart, thou shalt in any wise rebuke thy neighbor and not suffer sin upon him." Now, I want to spend some time in verse 17, and the main reason why is because this deals with the intentions of your heart position, which no one can really see. No one can see your heart. Because what happens in society is that people don't necessarily speak as their heart is really thinking. Well, that's not fair to say no one, but it is popular for people to say, smile, and say something that their heart isn't necessarily feeling, isn't reflecting. This is where I get in trouble, because I tend to say what's on my mind sometimes, and I have to learn how to be a lot more wiser in how I respond to people and how I express myself, because it does put some people off. I just don't want to be two faces. I don't want to say one thing and do another. I don't want to go that far left or right, or however you say it. I don't want to go that far so my pendulum swings over and just says, okay, I'm just one person, I'm going to have one response. But then there's no nuance to it. And so you have to have, from what I'm learning, because I don't necessarily agree with this yet, you have to have some nuance, from what I've been told by people I love and I respect. The truth of the matter is, and again, this is the book of Leviticus, chapter 19. Keep in mind, this is the Pentateuch. This is what some would call the first 5 books of the Bible written by Moses. Now, when they were written, I don't really know. However, I personally believe the book of Levi was written along the way to Canaan. I can't prove that, but it's just in some of the tenses of the words, specifically around the beginning of the book of Leviticus, that shows me that he was writing the book along the way. I don't believe he wrote Genesis along the way. It is also of belief, my grandchildren and brothers and sisters in Kenya, it is also believed that the very first writings on the Bible, what we call the Bible today, that were scrolls back then, came out of Ethiopia, which is where he was. Spent half his life there. Keep in mind, Moses at this time was over 83 years old. I think it was at least over 80. I get confused whether his brother Aaron was 83, if his brother Aaron was the oldest, or Moses was the oldest. One was 80, one was 83 when they took off on this journey. So he is writing principles that he is familiar with. Not to mention the Spirit of God is leading him on. And he's talking about the importance of community, speaking to the 12 tribes, as we call them, 12 tribes of Israel, the children of Israel. And he's speaking principles of community because he is walking them from Egypt, riding from Egypt, going to Canaan, which in actuality is an 11-day journey, but they're not going through certain lands, and so they're taking evasive steps to get to the land. Going around the mountain, if you will. And the goal is, part of the goal, not the whole goal, but the part of the goal is dealing with some of the things that they had to deal with in Egypt. Mindsets. These mindsets keep you from striving together as a group. Verse 17, thou shalt not hate thy brother in thine heart, thou shalt in any wise rebuke thy neighbor, and not suffer sin upon him. These were real things that real people go through, coming out of a system that was not based upon the kingdom of God. Because keep in mind, Joseph and Jacob were generations ago. They were living according to Egyptian principles at this stage. In other words, they weren't necessarily all living according to their previous culture. Not saying all weren't. I'm just saying that was generations ago. The 12 sons were gone. Reuben, Naphtali, Issachar, Dan, Joseph, Judah. They were now tribes. So dealing with personal ways of being was a very real thing for Moses, the old guy, who was walking these people into a new place of security. So, telling people in verse 17, thou shalt not hate thy brother, is a very real thing. We know that to be true in our generation. In dealing with people. Now, they don't express their hate by saying, I hate you. They express their hate by excluding you, not talking to you, separating from you, not acting as a brother or a sister towards you. You're not worthy. And their inner man has made a decision and has justified that behavior. Now, you don't have to agree with me, just look the words up. Here are the definitions. Because we think when someone hates you, they say, I hate you. No, they just treat you differently. Hate doesn't mean they pull out a knife and stick you in your back. It's just that they speak, as we talked about in the previous video, it's just that they treat you as a blind person, as a deaf person, as though you can't hear them. Even though when you're walking together as tribes, you're dealing with the fact that you don't have favor. See, when you don't get the opposite, it means you're getting the opposite. It's a very real thing. If you're not getting favor, you're getting something that you didn't recognize. People don't have to tell you. You're not getting favor. If you're not getting love, if you're not getting respect, now, it could be your problem. It could be my fault. It could be. It could be. But it can also not be. It could be that people are just rebelling against the spirit that they're uncomfortable with. Verse 17, Leviticus 19, thou shalt not hate thy brother in thine heart. Thou shalt in any wise rebuke thy neighbor and not suffer sin upon him. So you have to ask yourself, do you suffer sin upon people around you? Let me say it differently. Are you your brother's keeper? We'll go all the way back to Genesis. The answer should be yes. We are our brothers and sisters' keeper. If we're going from imperfection to perfection, from immaturity to maturity, from poverty to wealth, then the inner man has to change and be dealt with. I don't know if you recognize this, all of these principles that and this isn't the 10 Commandments. All of these principles that we're dealing with are the principles of how to treat each other within the kingdom of God, within the laws of God. These should be our attitudes, not beatitudes. Never mind. I was just playing around. Please, don't roast me. Get it? Beatitudes? Never mind. But these should be the right attitudes towards each other. Verse 18, thou shalt not avenge nor bear any grudge against the children of thy people. Don't hold it against their kids because you didn't like them or something didn't work out or you never forgave each other. Then you're going to hold it against their kids. Don't bear any grudges against the kids. They're just kids, children of thy people. But thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. I, the Lord. How much grace and mercy would you give yourself? Well, give that same grace and mercy towards your neighbor. Sometimes things don't work out because you don't allow them to work out. But you want to blame them for their part, but you don't want to take any responsibility because it's all their fault, even though you had a collective responsibility. I want to answer this call, but yeah, you got to work on that.